Okay, you're not recording. I'm so glad I get to edit this. My uploaded dude. Useful. What is it? So hard to start talking. My stupid anti-social self. Why am I like this? I don't know. Well, I hate giving presentations. I hate giving presentations so much. Do this. I can't do this. Okay. So just to make sure that's not upload. Submit before. Hello. So I am doing my presentation on the differences between vacation culture in Japan and the United States. Now, the first major difference between Japan and the United States is the amount of time that people get to go on vacation. Japan has something that most countries in the world have, known as mandatory paid time off, where the government mandates a certain amount of time be given to workers off from work, depending on how long they have worked at that company. In Japan, it is at minimum 10 days after 6 months of working at a company, which increases then to 20 days by the time that the worker has done 10 years of service at the company, as you can see here. And also, as you can see here in the United States, there is zero mandatory paid vacation days around the world, meaning the paid vacation time that a worker receives is generally up to the employer. Now, this generally means that Americans will get less time off from work on average than Japanese people. However, Japanese workers will generally take less time off. Now, data-wise, you can see that the average American worker receives about 10 days of paid vacation per year, and they use most of it. While the average Japanese worker only takes about 8.8 days of the average 18.1 received per year. Why is this? Well, the culture of Japan is very focused on hard work, and it is seen as one of the greatest virtues that someone can have is to be a hard worker. And so it is discouraged for people to take long vacation times off from work. or any vacation at all, because it can be seen as laziness, as not doing your part to contribute to the society and your company. And it is actually common for Japanese people to take off vacation time in hours or even minutes. For example, if you had to leave work to um, pick up a relative from the airport and take them across the town, then you might take an hour or two off from work to do that. Um, Another difference is once you have the time off from work, you need to get to where you're going. And there is a big difference in the way that Japanese and American people get to where they're going. Now, the United States has a very, very well built highway system that has a lot of funding and stretches over the whole country. So typically, an American family, if they're going to go anywhere less than somewhere around 500 to 800 miles away, then they're probably going to be driving due to the roads being very well built and the lack of any other cheap mode of transportation. Now, this is not the case in Japan, where there is a train network, as you can see, that stretches the whole length of the country and involves pretty much every major city and center of population where most of the Japanese population lives, connected by very, very high speed trains called the Shinkansens. And so typically a Japanese family, if they're going on vacation within the main islands of Japan, then they will be taking the train. Um, and this can make a really big difference in travel times and the way that trips work out. And to illustrate that, let me show you an example. So from Lexington, Kentucky, if you want to travel to Macon, Georgia, which is a distance of about 465 miles away, the only real route to get there is by car, and it takes about 7 hours going down the interstate. And that's about the average travel speed throughout most of where people would go on vacation. In comparison, in Japan, if you were to travel from Tokyo to Aomori, which is in the north of Japan, about 440 miles north of Tokyo, so roughly the same distance, you can take a high-speed train that leaves every 30 minutes and only takes about 3 hours, which is less than half the time it takes to drive. Um, Now, once you get to your destination, there's going to be big differences in what you'll be doing depending on the country. Now, every country, including these two, has similar geographic hotspots that people like to go to, such as the beach or the mountains. But there are a lot of unique experiences that are very prevalent within their own country. First of all, in Japan, it is a very historically rich country, being so old and having a lot of its ancient architecture preserved, especially in comparison to the United States, a country which is only about 300 years old. And so it's very popular to visit things like castles, as seen in the bottom left, that's Himeji Castle, Buddhist temples and pagodas, and Shinto shrines, which are often this very beautiful historical architecture that people like to go visit. Another example of a very unique thing to do in Japan that people like to go to is a ryokan, which is a type of Japanese traditional inn, which it's seen pictured in the top right here. And it has tatami mats on the floor, these low tables, these chairs without any legs, paper sliding doors. And often you'll get served food in your room, depending on how expensive of a ryokan you go to. And often these are located at onsen, which are Japanese hot springs, natural hot springs, where people like to go to bathe and relax. And it's supposed to have good health benefits, being full of like minerals and being good for your skin. Um, in comparison to this, in the United States, which is a much larger country than Japan. So first of all, the sheer size of the United States means that there's a lot more varied climates and locations, which leads to one of the most popular things for Americans being going to national and state parks. You can see some of them pictured here. We have Yosemite National Park in California, and we have Big River Bend National Park out west, and Olympia National Park in Washington, which all show three very different landscapes. So that's a very popular thing to do. Um, Secondly, America has over 475 amusement parks, which is nearly 5 times as many as in Japan and is easily the most in the world. I mean, I'm sure everyone knows about Kings Island, Disney World, Disneyland, Universal Studios. Um, and these are very, very popular vacation destinations for people to go to for a couple days to even a week if you go to somewhere like Disney World or Disneyland. And now, of course, I couldn't talk about American road trips without talking about our cheap roadside attractions. You can see Dinosaur World, which is in Cave City here in Kentucky, along the interstate, which are somewhat declining nowadays, but they're still such a iconic staple of American culture that they're even pictured in prominent media, like the show Gravity Falls. Largely features a roadside attraction that the main characters live at. And conclusions about this, like the reasons why the vacations differ this way is sort of a reflection of the cultures of each country. For example, Japanese destinations that are the unique Japanese destinations typically focus on calm and relaxing environments. I mean, hot springs, a hotel that you can relax at, um, temples and shrines, which have a very calm atmosphere. Um, and that is most likely due to the very, very overworked population from that aforementioned work heavy culture, which can create a really strong sense of needing to just relax on your time off. In comparison to American vacations, which typically are more active, people will go on long trips and use their vacation time not just to relax, but also to do things like hiking and riding roller coasters and visiting cities and walking around and exploring. And while Japanese people obviously still enjoy those things and they do those things a lot, Japan has several major theme parks. There's a Disneyland Japan, there's Universal Studios, there's tons of nature, places to hike, things to do. However, due to the efficient transportation system in Japan, caused by the trains and the public transit throughout cities, um, those can be done very often as like day trips. People can get a very long distance in a short amount of time. So shorter trips can be done to do all of those things. Whereas in the United States, things are very, very far apart. And so to get to a lot of places like that, you'll have to dedicate a whole long trip to go there. Um, which is just a little bit of how American and Japanese vacation culture differs. Um, it's just a little reflection of the needs and wants of the people that I think is very interesting.